In the 1990s, earthmovers weren't just powerful. They were brutal survivors. Machines like the Terex TS24 slammed 24-ton loads all day in Wyoming, while Caterpillar 631E units shrugged off 50,000 pound-pound shocks and ran 30,000 hours straight. Before computers failed in mud, these scrapers defied logic, frame stats off the charts, operators claiming unkillable. Why did these tank-built legends outlast everything modern engineers promised? The real test of indestructible begins here. Terex TS24 didn't care about limits. In Wyoming's Powder River Basin, these green monsters muscled through 24 yards struck, 32 yards heaped, then took more when the pit boss wasn't looking. High tensile steel ran double thick through the stress zones, built for 3,500 pounds per square inch loads that would have snapped lesser frames. Operators pushed those numbers every shift, slamming overburden until the bowl chains screamed. But the chains never quit. In 1992, TS24s out of the Gillette pits hauled 28-yard loads, day after day, on the same original chain sets bolted in at delivery. No mid-season swaps, no whining about stretch or slack. The chain ejector system kept biting, load after load, where others would have slipped or failed. Old hands remember the sound. Engine at full tilt, bowl packed to the gills, transmission locked in, and the TS24 just kept grinding forward. One Powder River operator, 30 years in the seat, put it simple: overloaded without whine, pure muscle. He had run newer machines and watched electronics blink out in dust storms, but the Terex never blinked. The frame flexed, the bowl groaned, but nothing broke. Every weld, every pin, every link in that chain was there for one reason: survival in the nastiest overburden on Earth. In a world before digital warnings, the TS24's only complaint was a little more diesel smoke. That's how you built a scraper to last, and why some are still running, original chains and all, in the coal fields today. Caterpillar's 631E didn't just haul. This machine survived what would have crippled lesser iron. Rated at 25 to 34 cubic yards, the 631E came with a 3408 V8 that pumped out 450 horsepower. But the real story sat between the frame rails. A cushion hitch engineered to swallow 50,000 pound shocks day after day, without passing the pain to the operator or the frame. Nevada's caliche pits put that to the test in 1995. Caliche isn't dirt, it's concrete hard, loaded with buried stone. When the 631E met a hidden boulder at speed, the hitch compressed, nitrogen charged, and the force vanished. No frame cracks, no downtime, just a deep metallic thud and a cloud of dust. The modular cooling system kept the 631E running in the desert, pulling air through the core, even as the mercury hit the triple digits. Mechanics swapped coolers in hours, not days. Operators ran these beasts for 30,000 hours on the original transmission, proof-stamped in faded paint and worn hour meters. One Nevada hand, still proud after decades in the seat, remembered that line. Hit rock, hitch laughed, tractor lived. No electronics to glitch, no sensors to fail. Just steel, oil, and a hitch built to take the worst the pit could throw. That is why 631Es from the late 1990s are still out there, taking hits, hauling full bowls, and shrugging off shocks that would sideline anything built after. The 631E was not just a hauler, it was a survivor, built for impact. International Harvester's 295 pay scraper didn't just survive, it outlasted the brand itself. Built in limited numbers, the 295 carried up to 32 yards heaped, steel liners armoring the bowl against rust and abrasion. Its secret weapon was redundancy, a triple hydraulic pump setup that meant steering, bowl lift, and ejector never fought for flow. Even if one circuit lost pressure deep in the muck, The others kept hauling. Operators in the Australian clay pits pushed these machines hard through sticky red earth in 1990. Where most scrapers bogged and seals failed, the 295 kept ejecting full bowls, shift after shift. Sequential valves made sure the load dumped every time, no matter how thick the clay or how deep the ruts. One veteran from Bundaberg remembered the worst wet season in years. Machines sank axle deep, but the 295's triple hydraulics never left him stranded. "Triple pumps saved my ass in mud. Unkillable," he said, shaking his head at newer machines that stalled out when the going got tough. He ran that same 295 for years, never once losing steering or bowl control, no matter how bad the pit got. Mechanical backups meant no electronic panic, just pure, stubborn reliability. Loving these 90s tanks? Like and comment with your toughest scraper story. Which machine took the worst beating and still finished the job? Let's hear from the operators who made these legends last. Raw power had a name in the 1990s, and it was the Caterpillar 657E. This was not just a scraper. It was a double-barreled force of nature, packing 2.3-4-1-2 diesel engines for a combined punch that topped 800 horsepower. Each engine drove a separate set of wheels, locking the whole rig into the earth with a grip that never let go, even when the haul road turned to rubble. The 657E's bowl swallowed 44 cubic yards at a time, enough to bury a pickup truck in a single pass. But it was not just about size. The frame ran on I-beam rails thick enough to shrug off side loads that would bend lesser machines. Nitrogen-charged cylinders in the suspension soaked up 14 inches of bounce, letting the operator keep speed through ruts that would have snapped welds on anything lighter. In 1993, Chile's copper mines got a taste of what real muscle looked like. The pit boss there ran tandem 657Es, pushing double loads up grades that made mechanics wince. The ground shook when the twins fired up together, engines roaring in sync, I-beam rails flexing, but never giving an inch. One supervisor, still proud after decades in the field, called it the only scraper he trusted to finish a shift at full throttle. He said, "Twins hoard over Huff, Speed King." Only about 267 of these twin giants ever made it out of the factory, each one a rolling monument to overkill. No computer held them back. Every ounce of force ran through steel, oil, and operator hands. When the competition tried to match pace with electronics and sensors, the 657E just dug deeper and hauled harder. 3 decades later, some are still running in the same Chilean pits, their frames scored by rock but unbroken. That is what happens when you build a scraper to outlast the job itself, a machine that never learned how to quit. John Deere's 860 wasn't the biggest machine on the lot, but in the frozen north, it was the one you wanted when the job called for finesse over brute force. In the mid-1990s, Alaska pipeline crews faced soil that went from rock-hard permafrost at dawn to sticky mud by midday. The 860's elevating design, with its chain-driven elevator and bowl, let operators carve clean cuts even when the ground fought back. No electronics to freeze up, no sensors to fail, just a mechanical system that transferred every ounce of power straight to the dirt. Operators relied on the 860's hydraulic pitch controls to adjust the bowl angle on the fly. If the ground was frozen solid, a quick lever pull would set the pitch for a shallow bite, shaving just enough to keep traction without stalling. When the sun thawed the surface, a tweak gave deeper cuts, filling the bowl fast without bogging down the engine. The elevator chain kept grinding, feeding the load up and over, never choking on frost or clay. Fuel use stayed low, even as temperatures dropped and the air thickened, part of why the 860 earned a reputation as a fuel saver on long, cold shifts. One Alaska operator, running pipe access in 1994, summed it up after a week of sub-zero mornings. Pitch locked to the soil, never lugged, never wasted a drop. For him, the 860's cab was more than a seat. It was a command post built for endurance. With the heater cranked and the windows frosted, he could fine-tune the load with one hand, watching the bowl fill evenly, never fighting the controls. The machine's reliability meant fewer breakdowns in the cold, less time lost to field fixes, and more dirt moved before the next storm rolled in. While modern scrapers chase automation, the 860's mechanical precision proved that when the ground turned to iron, nothing beat a system you could trust by touch. 30 years later, machines like the 860 still show up on jobs where the cold punishes anything less than overbuilt. That is why operators called it the elevating ace, always ready, always efficient, no matter how deep the frost ran. Allis Chalmers 460 wasn't the loudest scraper in the pit, but for anyone who worked 12-hour Wyoming coal shifts, it was the one that let you finish with something left in the tank. The 460's cab isolation system floated on its own suspension, cutting out the bone-shaking harmonics that turned lesser machines into torture racks by hour 8. Operators stepped down at shift's end, still fresh. No ringing in their ears, no numb hands. That comfort translated directly into production. Guys could run longer, stay sharp, and keep moving dirt, while others slowed or swapped out. Custom tire sets on the 460 were rated for 100,000 miles, built to take Wyoming's sharp shale and never chunk out. Dual hydraulic circuits meant if a line blew, you didn't lose the whole machine, just one function, and you could limp it back for repairs. In 1992, crews at Black Thunder loaded and dumped for 12 hours straight. Cab doors, closing out wind, dust, and fatigue. One coal hand summed it up. Cab floated the vibes. 12 hours, still ready for more. The Euclid S40 was a different animal. Brute strength wrapped in a box frame that could twist 12 degrees without a single weld giving up. In Nevada's rough country, 1995, these machines took on terrain that bent lesser frames until they cracked. The S40's planetary multi-ejector let operators clear sticky loads fast, even when the bowl was packed to the rails. Everything ran through a joystick, no fighting heavy levers, just quick, precise control as the scraper muscled over rocks that would have broken others in half. The torsion box design let the whole frame flex and recover, so when the ground heaved, the S40 ate the shock and kept rolling. One Nevada operator put it bluntly, "Frame ate rocks, indestructible." That's the difference 1990s engineering made. Machines that put operator comfort and structural survival first, letting crews push harder, longer, and safer. For more legends built to outlast the job, subscribe to Construction Legends. 1990s, iron never quits. Caterpillar 633E was the production beast that never blinked. In Powder River, these machines ran endless cycles, gouging through coal overburden with a bowl edge armored in carbide, harder than the rock and tougher than the job. Each 33-yard load slammed into the bowl, but the edge did not round off, did not chip, and did not care. Carbide metallurgy, pressed and fused to the steel, gave the 633E a wear life that outlasted the pit's own schedule. Operators logged over 6,000 cycles before the first sign of edge fatigue. Some machines kept their original carbide for years, even as the rest of the fleet swapped out blades and bits every season. A Powder River mechanic, hand stained black from years in the pit, put it this way: "Carbide gouged forever, production god. We'd pull the edge, check for cracks, and just bolt it back on. Nothing else lasted." That kind of uptime meant fewer shutdowns, more dirt moved, and less time under a welding torch. The 633E's secret was not just brute force, it was material science built into every inch of the bowl. While other machines waited for parts, the 633E kept cycling, hour after hour, bowl after bowl, In a world where downtime kills profit, that edge was the difference between making quota and falling behind. 30 years later, some of those same edges still bite. Proof that real engineering wins the uptime war. Caterpillar's 627G was the field mechanic's best friend. It was built for jobs where downtime meant lost contracts, and the nearest shop was 100 miles of dirt track away. With a 26 to 30-yard bowl and a planetary drive that could shrug off abuse, the 627G ran on a system designed for quick, on-the-spot repairs. Planetary modularity meant a mechanic could swap out a drive section or fix a leaking seal right at the pit's edge. No waiting for a shop crane or a parts truck. The cushion hitch, legendary for soaking up hits, could be rebuilt with a few wrenches and a nitrogen bottle, cutting hours off any breakdown. In 1998, an Australian open-cut pit put this to the test. A blown hitch accumulator threatened to sideline the whole shift, but the on-site crew had it stripped and recharged before the loader even finished fueling. No computer codes, no locked-out diagnostics, just tools, sweat, and parts that made sense. One Aussie mechanic, still running the same 627G after 25 years, summed it up. Field fix in the dirt, never lost a load waiting on a laptop. That's why we kept them. The 627G's variable planetary let operators dial in traction for loose or packed ground, and when the weather turned, locked differentials kept the bowl moving. Reliability wasn't a feature. It was the whole point. These machines didn't just survive. They adapted, rebuilt, and went back to work. That's why, in pits from Queensland to Kalgoorlie, you'll still find 627Gs hauling today. Number 1. Coming, the ultimate. Hit the bell and share your dream scraper. Which 1990s tank would you run if nothing else could finish the job? Caterpillar's 651E was not just the king of the 1990s. This was the scraper that set the bar for everything that came after. Stretched out over 53 feet, the 651E's massive frame was rated for loads north of 220,000 pounds, with a bowl that swallowed 44 cubic yards, SAE heaped. Underneath, a forged crankshaft and full-length water-cooled cylinders anchored a turbocharged diesel, pushing out 457 horsepower through a mechanical fuel injection system that never quit, even when the job site turned ugly. The scraper circuit pumped 579 liters per minute, enough hydraulic muscle to lift a full bowl on grade every time. Fewer than 100 left the factory, each one built for the kind of work that chewed up lesser machines and spat out their frames. Overbuilt. Back in 1997, a Wyoming dam project needed every ounce of that muscle. Crews faced a schedule that would have buried most fleets. But the 651Es cut cycle times in half, moving twice the dirt, twice as fast, with no complaints from the frame or the operators. One supervisor, still in the game after 3 decades, recalled that they would double up. 2 scrapers, 1 push, no hesitation. The 651E just took it. They never saw a hitch crack, and they never lost a load. That machine is still out here. Same frame, same guts. Survivor, plain and simple. Every inch of the 651E was overbuilt, from the box section bowl to the custom suspension. Forged internals, mechanical controls, and a hydraulic system that never ran out of nerve. This was the mega tank that proved what the 1990s engineering could do. When the rest of the world moved on to electronics, the 651E kept tearing through Earth, long after the competition had left the field. Tank. Today, machines last half as long. Downtime costs more than ever. As tech stacks pile up, only a handful of scrapers from the 1990s still gouge through rock, earning their keep with brute reliability. When the next job site pushes limits, it is the mechanical tanks that keep moving Earth. Share your toughest scraper story in the comments.